Well, hot damn, we've had WrestleMania cuts, and now we've had WrestleMania Backlash cuts, major cuts, title of your crappy WWE pay-per-view. Because as Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reported earlier today, he heard that there were some major names set to be released today. He heard what those names were going to be, but he wasn't going to disclose them out of respect for the talent, because the talent themselves weren't yet told. How lovely is that, that a company can leak who is going to get fired before letting the people in question know already? And quite shockingly, let's have a drum roll for the production here, because I am going to share my screen. Should have set this up better on WWE.com's official page here. Braun Strowman, Aleister Black, Lana Murphy, Ruby Riott, and Santana Garrett. There's a lot of those names there that are just simply stunning. Braun Strowman is probably the immediate knee-jerk reaction. He was fighting for the WWE Championship at the last pay-per-view at WrestleMania Backlash in that three-way with Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre that, you know what, was bloody excellent. He hasn't really entered a new feud after that, but on this week's Raw, in those, hey, WWE's coming home to enter the name of your city here, he did a little inset promo for that, saying, I can't wait for you to all come see me live. Get these hands. Choo choo. But it turns out we need a bigger boat. He is no longer with the company. I mean, that to me sounds like that was an incredibly last-minute decision. It's since come out. Sorry, a lot of reports have come out over the last hour or so. I can't remember who exactly said this, but when Braun signed his most recent multi-year deal, it was said to be a very, very big one. And it was negotiations that went right down to the wire. We're talking 5 years. It would lock him up for $1 million a year. Braun was an expensive guy. And WWE right now have told talent the reason behind these cuts is due to budget cuts, cost-cutting measures, you know, for a company that has been more profitable than any period in its history right now. The obvious speculation there is they are trying to make it leaner, more efficient, even more profitable, potentially preparing WWE for a sale. And having a guy like Braun Strowman on $1 million a year for 2 to 3 years more, that is a continued expense that will have to be accounted for. So maybe the new buyers wouldn't want that. But that is definitely an argument to why Braun Strowman will be released. I can understand that reason. But at the same time, he is one of the most built-up main roster guys on your entire roster. The reason you are paying him $1 million a year is because you can put him in a main event. He can sell tickets. He can do... Well, he can't, you know, he's not been booked the best. Yes, I grant you. But the idea behind wrestling is you get people over. Aleister Black. Aleister Black is also one that kind of comes out of left field. Actually, I will tell you just how out of left field. It's literally what Aleister Black himself has said, or we should now call him Tommy End, because that was his name on the indie circuit before he joined WWE. That's what I know him as, because, yes, I watched him before he was cool in Progress. I watched him before even you NXT marks knew about him. But he has tweeted here, I'm gathering my thoughts, as this was a complete left field for me, as obviously we just started the Dark Father character. But this was it. Thank you so much, WWE Universe, for allowing me to create and give you small bits of myself. And yeah, it was only ever small bits on the main roster, because after a fantastic run as NXT champion, he was called up in a tag team with Ricochet. You remember that? Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano as well, in the middle of one of the best told feuds of all time in NXT. They're feuding, and they get called up to the main roster as a frickin' tag team. I was just listening to our sort of live reactions to these cuts on the WrestleTalk podcast channel. Go check it out. You can watch Luke, Jenna, Pete, and Tempest all have their hearts broken to this news in real time. Isn't that fun? Tempest said that Aleister Black might be the most frustrating NXT call-up to the main roster ever, in that they never gave him the chance. It looked like Paul Heyman was going to give him a chance. Like it was between Aleister Black and Drew McIntyre in January last year over who Paul Heyman was going to give the spot to eliminate Brock Lesnar to. And they went with Drew, which, you know, I love Drew, but Black was in that conversation. Of course, he's just faded into obscurity now. His wife, Zelina Vega, got released back in November for standing up to the company, saying, no, you cannot have my Twitch account. And now, Black just freaking, I keep remembering bits. Black just returned on SmackDown. He's been running those vignettes. He ran in to do the distraction, that's the sort of smudged finish to the main event, starting that feud with Big E, it seemed. Yeah, complete left field. There's also been another report, sorry, I can't remember who to attribute it to, but WWE have shot that angle where in the next step in the Big E Aleister Black feud. So just like Strowman, this Black release is, or Tommy End release, is out of nowhere. Especially, you can see from the talent, he's shocked. He did not see this coming. There were rumors, or reports rather, late last year that he requested to go back down to NXT, I believe, but they didn't want that because that would have been good. The other names, let me stop sharing this screen now. Look at the production. We've got Lana. Lana is not so shocking, I would say, because she also had a few run-ins with the company throughout her career, really. Last year, more specifically, because she had a Bang Energy sponsorship on Instagram. And, you know, there were reports that several of the women in WWE were making six figures on branded deals on their social media. And WWE saw that and was like, well, we want that money. And that's kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back for WWE to then go, we want all of your Twitch and OnlyFans and Cameo money too. So it was sort of that, apparently it was sort of that Lana example that led to that. Sorry, I'm just seeing, the reason I didn't make this sooner is because I was getting a haircut. I've busted open hard way. Look at that cut. Now that's a major cut right there. I can relate to these people now. But yeah, Lana, of course, her real-life husband, Miro, is the current TNT champion in AEW. I think once upon a time, we would have all liked to have seen them reunited in another company or an act on the indies outside of WWE. See the full version of what they could be. But I've got to be honest, I'm loving Miro so much as the singular best man. I don't know what Lana could add to that gimmick. Of course, she probably won't be using the name Lana. Her real name is CJ Perry, which is a pretty cool name too. But yeah, so Lana, of course, she is in a never-ending, or was in a never-ending tag team with Naomi. So that's done. They did lose on Monday. Maybe they had made their minds up then, you know, hugely putting over Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. Murphy is another, it was Murphy who Tempest said was the biggest missed opportunity. Murphy's an interesting case. He is someone who was part of that Paul Heyman crop of talent that Meltzer famously said, like, when Paul Heyman got removed from the executive director position of Raw last year in June, Meltzer said, apart from Drew McIntyre, I think everyone else is going to struggle. And Shayna Baszler has kind of been okay because she was the women's tag team champions for so long, but she is currently feuding with a puppet. But the other people in that group were Aleister Black, Andrade, Buddy Murphy, and lo and behold, they've all lost their jobs. Now, I think, thankfully, This isn't at the start of the pandemic when nobody had places to work. Indie promotions are running shows now. And these people, presumably they've all got 90-day non-competes. That's how main roster cuts work. So they wouldn't be able to... Oh, it's the 2nd of the month, so this is quite easy. June, July, August, September. It will be late August or early September. Doesn't AEW have All Out in Chicago on September 5th? CM Punk to AEW confirmed. But Murphy is someone that Kenny Omega has said frequently in interviews of all the people he would like to wrestle in WWE. Buddy Murphy's number 1. Presumably so he can kick the crap out of him, because Buddy Murphy's just taken all of his moves. Just be a V-trigger war. But yeah, Murphy, that one doesn't surprise me. He's been nowhere. The romantic storyline with the Mysterios and Aaliyah on SmackDown was just dropped. He hasn't been brought back. He's been complaining on social media a bunch because he's not being used. He's a guy in the prime of his career who wants to wrestle, and he's doing nothing. And that is really, I said this back in April when they did the last round of main roster cuts. These are people in the prime of their careers, and that's what's frustrating about this. The WWE never really intended to use these guys. They signed them to these long-term deals so other companies couldn't use them. So these people who wanted to develop their craft and wrestle couldn't do that elsewhere. It's like a spoiled, petulant child who says, no, I'm not going to play with these toys, but you can't have them. They're my toys. But, Murphy can hopefully now go and show the world how great he is. Ruby Riott. Of course, she's in the Riott Squad tag team with Liv Morgan. Stephanie Chase, Wrestling Daily's Stephanie Chase, said earlier that she was only just interviewing Liv Morgan today. And she was being very hopeful about her and Ruby, that they can do some work together. And now she's released. That must have happened hours after that interview, this release. So, yeah, blindsided, I imagine. Of the original Riott Squad lineup, Sarah Logan is also no longer with the company. So Liv Morgan is the sole survivor there. But Ruby Riott is an excellent wrestler. I really like her look. I've always been a big fan of her. Of the Riott Squad bunch, she was always my favorite. So... someone's got to snap her up. Obviously, there's a part of me that just wants everyone to go to AEW, but Impact. I'd love to see her mix it up with Deonna Purrazzo in a proper way, with Jordan Grace. They've got a great women's division there. And finally, in this list, Santana Garrett, who is an NXT wrestler. Let me share my screen because she has also tweeted. She has simply tweeted, "Thank you, WWE, praying hands emoji, heart emoji, little star thing emoji. Peace, love, and headband power. Time to shine, women's wrestling. Santana Garrett, WWE, NXT. Got to get the hashtags in." So, yes, Santana Garrett's also gone. And the stickler for this, quite ridiculously, is that it has also just been reported she was scheduled for a main roster call-up on Friday's SmackDown. So that says to me that the people who signed off and made these cuts are not the people running the shows week to week. Because why would you have that stuff planned? It's insane. It is absolutely insane. Let's just have a look at anything that's trending here. What's Braun doing? Woo-woo. Yep, so there's the fight for one. You're just watching me look through Twitter now. Alex McCarthy, he'll be on Wrestling Daily tonight. Go and subscribe to Wrestling Daily. I always thought Braun was a prized big man to Vince McMahon, no matter how he was booked. He was so hot at one point, particularly during the feud with Roman. Stunned by that one. All of those beautiful memories of him flipping ambulances and various structures. Denise here, I can't imagine not having any creative plans for Braun Strowman. Yeah, Well, I think that's easy to say because they did have creative plans for him 3 weeks ago when he was feuding for the top title on Raw. Honestly. Oh my God, he beat Shane. I forgot. Gary Cassidy just said he beat Shane McMahon at WrestleMania. Oh, and another thing about Aleister Black was that they have just put a couple of designs of new T-shirts for him on the WWE shop to pre-order. I recommend everyone go to his Pro Wrestling Tees store instead when that is inevitably up. Yeah, okay, so it was Dave Meltzer. They literally just shot the Aleister Black versus Big E angle. So that tells you, at least in his case, this was not thought about for any length of time. WrestleVotes here adding the releases of both Strowman and Aleister Black surprise him for a number of reasons. Both were well liked backstage and considered for big roles upon the live crowd returns. Of course, that's next month, middle of July. Yeah. God damn it. Well, what do you think, everybody? Let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully this isn't a monthly occurrence, you know? It's a bit depressing after a while. I mean, it's quite easy to be immune because obviously there was the big one at the start of the pandemic last year. That was just awful. I can only imagine how awful it would have been for the people who actually lost their jobs. When it happened this year in April, it was also terrible, but there was also an element of, I just can't believe this is happening exactly a year after. Then you got the NXT releases, then the big mass cuts backstage, 35 people, upwards of 35 people in the back office staff, some huge corporate restructuring behind the scenes. A lot of executives lost their jobs. Divisions were merged. It does seem like there is more going on than just a return to live crowds. Maybe it's the end of the brand split. I don't think so either. Well, shit.